Hello and welcome to English 1301. My name is Professor Smith. Let's get started with week one. So, hopefully, you've gotten all the way through the start here. You found the important class links hub, and hopefully, you have logged on to the book. Let's take a look at what we're going to be working on this semester. So, this semester, we are going to be covering four different essays in this class. These are all essays that are common in college and you will experience at one point or another. The first one is the autobiographical narrative. The second one is an evaluation essay. The third one is an analysis essay. And the fourth one is an argument essay. We're going to begin our semester with the autobiographical narrative, which is really just a fancy way of saying a story about you. In our module, we have the lectures, which you've already found. We have the assignments, the recommended readings, and this is above and beyond the readings that we will be doing for assignments. We are reading some chapters specifically for assignments. Then there's some other recommended readings in here. Then we've got information that is pertinent to the actual writing of the paper, in this case, the autobiographical narrative. Basic features, special strategies for writing them, what constitutes a good story, how to format narrative dialogue, and another video about how to write dialogue. Actually, it's a website, my apologies. And then, of course, setting up our paper properly in MLA format. Now, we're not going to go over all of these in this lecture because we'll be going over some of this over the next couple of weeks, with your first paper being due in about 3 weeks. If you'd like to get specifics for that, make sure you check the calendar or the gradebook where you can find all of the due dates for the rest of the semester. The first thing I would really like for y'all to do after you've logged into the book is make sure you've sent your email where you've acknowledged the syllabus and make sure it's from your official Sanjack email. But the very first assignment that we have is going to be to read chapters 1 and 2. And the book that we are reading it out of is the Norton Field Guide to Writing. And there's a link in the important links hub, but also I have hyperlinked the chapters here. So anywhere where you see blue, it should be hyperlinked. And it should take you directly to the reading that you need to do. So for example, our first one is chapter 1, and it's going to take me to it where it's going to ask me my password, which I'm going to type in there. All my things that pop up. And here it takes me directly to chapter 1. Once you log in, it may ask you to log in again, but you shouldn't have to set it back up. So be sure to do that first before you try to go reading things. So the first chapter we're looking at is writing in academic contexts. There's a lot of different great things about this book. You can skip ahead to these different areas. If you kind of mouse over them, it will give you more information, and then I believe it will also take you to different places. Um, Basically, this is a not terribly long chapter about what it means to write in an academic context. In other words, beyond something like STAR or for your everyday writing, this is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your college career. Because other than tests, writing is one of the only other ways that most professors can tell whether or not you've grasped concepts or not. Obviously, in math, you'd be doing math work, etc. But for history, philosophy, psychology, anthropology, English, obviously, and so many other career paths and subjects, writing out reports is going to be the number one way that you show how you know what you know. So my suggestion would be when you read these chapters, you're going to be asked to make 3 questions or comments on them. As you're reading through it, if something catches your eye, if something sounds interesting, write it down. Make a comment about it. If you have a question about one of those things, write that down. And feel free to ask me should you need to. There's lots of different things in these chapters. There's little videos that you can watch that can explain more. They're actually pretty interesting and worth the time. So be sure that you take the time to go through and read carefully. So that's chapter one. The second chapter I'm asking you to read is chapter two, which makes sense. We will be skipping through a bunch of different chapters, so don't be concerned when the next one that you're asked to read is not chapter three, because it won't be. But like I said, you're supposed to go in, read the chapters, make three questions or comments, or any combination. It can be one question, two comments, one question, all three questions, all three comments, whatever. Uh, but you're going to do that for each chapter. So at the end of this, you're going to have 6 questions or comments for the assignment to turn in, which you'll turn in here on Blackboard. And that particular assignment will be due on the 17th on Saturdays. Typically, our assignments will be due on Saturdays, with Sunday being the first day of the week, and the next module will open, or the next video or lecture will be up on Sundays. All of our assignments will be due on Saturdays. Some of our assignments will count for attendance for the week. So, for example, in this case, most likely I will have the chapters 1 and 2 questions and comments count as attendance for the week, which means that if you do the assignment, you will be counted as here for the first week of school. So just, I will also try to make sure that that is noted on the assignment itself and in the announcements that I try to make each week, letting you know, reminding you what's due and what's going to count for attendance. So for this week, we are looking at the email about the syllabus acceptance, the introduce yourself, which is not actually here in assignments, but it is in the get started. So make sure that you go through the getting started. You have to watch the video, you have to read through the getting started info, and then you'll be allowed to go into introduce yourself. But make sure you do that. It's a pretty easy grade, all things considered. And that's really all we have due for this week. You are, of course, welcome to go through the website and start taking a look at the rest of the Blackboard. However, I will not be opening the next assignments until next Sunday. Right here, let's take a look real quick at the recommended readings, which of course are not visible. Let's make them visible real quick. Sorry about that. What I have in here is 2 chapters, again, from the Norton Field Guide to Writing. I didn't make these assignments, not because I didn't think they were good or worthy of it. I just felt like we had enough assignments, but I do recommend, if you have the time, to go through and take a look at these chapters. And you don't have to do it this week. I think you could do this next week, although next week we'll have a little bit different assignments. For the actual assignments, but these recommended readings are going to be there for the duration of the module. So when you get a chance, I think it's a good idea to take a look at these. There's just a lot of good information in both of them, especially chapter 5 about writing and learning online. If you've never taken an online class before, this would be good. But also developing academic habits of mind, I think is also worth taking a look at. I plan on going back through that myself because you're never too old to add new habits, good habits, particularly with academics. The other 2 readings that are in this folder are a couple of examples of autobiographical narratives. You're welcome to read through them now. I will probably mention them next week with next week's lecture because they are examples and I really don't want to overwhelm you with too much right now. So, again, for this week, just focus on the email, chapters 1 and 2, and the introduce yourself. And we'll be working through the rest of what a autobiographical narrative is, what it should look like, etc., as we move forward. So if you have any questions about anything that's going on, please let me know. And I hope you guys have a great week. I know this is a little short week, but I think next week will be a little bit better. And I will talk to you later.